Wow, the Giro d'Italia is over, and what a truly thrilling finale. Hello and welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. Coming up this week, we'll recap one of the closest Grand Tour finishes of recent times. There's been plenty of other racing though, with RideLondon, the Lotto Thüringen Tour, the Tour of Norway and more, so without further ado, let's dive into it. This week in the world of racing, we learnt that Jake Stewart is a big Mark Cavendish fan.
Oh, Cav's just a legend, eh? Like, to win there. That stage was, grew up watching him, and oh, that's special. And
Marco Frigo and Andrea Pasqualon have some adoring fan clubs. Slovenian supporters are some of the most passionate in the world. And that Primož Roglič is a four-time Grand Tour winner. That's right, Primož Roglič has won the 2023 Giro d'Italia, in quite simply epic circumstances too. However, on the final rest day, he sat third overall, over 1 minute down. So, how did we get here? Heading into stage 16, Bruno Armorai owned the Maglia Rosa. But awaiting him and all the riders was the revered Monte Bondone. Armorai resisted the high tempo admirably with pink on his back, but finally lost contact with 10 kilometers left. At this point, UAE and Jay Vine set an infernal tempo with João Almeida on his wheel. The Portuguese star attacked and was soon followed by Thomas. Roglič, though, apparently unable to follow, used Kuss to limit his losses. Some ride from the American at the service of Primož. Up the road, though, Thomas and Almeida were working supremely well together with Roglič in the rearview mirror. Both riders were challenging for their first Giro stage victory, but Almeida outkicked Thomas to not only win his first Giro stage, but his first at any of the Grand Tours. Thomas settled for second, but moved into pink, with his gap from Roglič increasing from just 2 seconds before the stage to 29 seconds at the finish line. Eddie Dunbar delivered perhaps the best performance of his career to date in fourth, with all the other favourites over a minute behind. This is only Dunbar's second career Grand Tour, and his first as a GC leader, yet this ride proved he's more than capable of competing with the very best over 3 weeks. Here's what he said at the finish line.
yeah, I mean, this is all I've ever wanted, was just have an opportunity in a race like this, and thankfully the team, Jake O'Lula, have put belief in me, and we've worked hard these last 6 months to get into shape for this race, and I can just thank them for the opportunity, really.
There'd be no changes at all on stage 17, with virtually no climbing all day long. Instead, various fan clubs were out on course to support their local riders, and the penultimate chance for the sprinters awaited in Cowley. Mark Cavendish and Pascal Ackermann were among the riders caught out of position though, so wouldn't be present for the finale. Instead, Jaco Alula positioned Michael Matthews perfectly, and he slingshotted from the wheel of Michael Hepburn with 250 metres still to go. The distinctive figure of Jonathan Milan was poorly positioned, but he barreled down the centre of the road, reeling in Matthews with every pedal stroke. But hiding in Matthews' wheel perfectly was Alberto Dainese. He popped out with 100 metres to go and held off the charging Milan in a photo finish, with Matthews just edged out in third place. That's 2 years in a row that Dainese has won an almost completely flat stage at the Giro. Back to the GC battle, because the Val d'Isoldo was waiting, but its precursor, the Koi climb, was where the real differences would be made. Let's start up the road though, because a breakaway featuring Warren Barguil, breakaway machine Derek G and Thibaut Pinot were allowed up the roads. Pinot set his rhythm on the Koi and quickly dispatched everyone, bar Italian champion Filippo Zana, who had enjoyed a great race so far, to be fair, working brilliantly for Michael Matthews on stage 3 and Eddie Dunbar on Monte Bondone. He was glued to Pinot's wheel, who led things out, but Zana is no slouch. He won from a small group to claim the Italian tricolour in June last year and demonstrated similar speed here to defeat Pinot. Yet more heartbreak for Thibaut after he was denied on Crans-Montana. But his day outs had earned him the Maglia at Zura, also sliding him back inside the top 10. On the other hand, what a day for Filippo Zana. He won his first Grand Tour stage in the National Champions jersey, all while riding on home roads. He was born just over 100 kilometers from the stage finish. Simply lovely. But behind, the race for pink was on. Kuss set a rapid pace with Roglič closely following. And after looking so strong on Monte Bondone, Almeida was distanced quickly. He still had Jay Vine though, who helped him set a good tempo. Kuss, Roglič and Thomas were still clear though, with a short descent to the Val d'Isoldo left, and Jay Vine made a minor error in that descent, costing both Almeida and Dunbar a couple of crucial seconds. The Domestiques had done their work, and it was down to the leaders in the final kilometre. Thomas worked well with Roglič, and the duo extended the gap to Almeida, ultimately putting 21 seconds into their rival. Dunbar again was the next best of the GC favourites, with good rides from Tymon Arensman and Damiano Caruso too. So, the GC looked like this, with Geraint Thomas riding consistently and looking good, but the Queen stage was looming. A breakaway left early with Santi Petrago, Magnus Cort and, of course, Derek G in the mix. Ben Healy missed the move though and tried to catch Groupama FDJ and Thibaut Pinot out, with Malia at 0 points on his mind. Pinot was attentive though, and Salvatore Puccio was not amused by Healy's antics, with others in the peloton having a slightly different perspective. Interestingly, Primož Roglič changed his bike with just over 20 kilometers left. He moved to a near mountain bike setup with only one ring on the front, hoping it would help him on the absurd percentages to come. The head of the race emerged through a brief thunderstorm, and Derek G set off in search of his inaugural stage victory. At this stage, I think every neutral was cheering for G, after he'd accumulated 3 second places already. But Santi Petrago had G in his sights. The Colombian used his climbing prowess to pounce when the hellish kilometers arrived, winning his second Giro stage in as many years. Another near miss for Derek G, but I think we can all agree he's had a sensational Grand Tour debut, and there are surely many stage victories in his future. Behind, the race was hotting up though, and Primož Roglič accelerated with just over a kilometre left. Thomas chased down Roglic's wheel, while Almeida was slightly slower to react, but also made it back. Thomas then tried his own move and dispatched Almeida for good this time. Roglič was gapped briefly, but fought admirably and actually passed Thomas in the final metres. Magnus Cort then sprinted for third, denying Roglič a crucial 4 bonus seconds. However, the Slovenian had clawed back 3 seconds to Thomas, leaving him with a 26-second deficit. Almeida leaked another 20 seconds to the Maglia Rosa, placing him 59 seconds behind. So, less than 1 minute separated the podium positions, with a close battle for the places further back in the top 10 too. But we still had one final GC day, and it was potentially the biggest GC day of the entire race, the Monte Lasari time trial. After checking out the route for himself, Alberto Contador called this stage potentially the hardest Grand Tour time trial he's ever seen. And when you look at the profile, it's no surprise. 7.3 kilometers at an average of a monstrous 12.1%. And the supporters were out in force. With the climb located just a few kilometers from Italy's border with Slovenia, Roglič would essentially enjoy home support. The atmosphere on the climb was electric. All the riders were cheered on, and some of the early starters revelled in the atmosphere, and we even saw the odd wheelie. Riders were allowed to change bikes at the foot of the climb, with organisers setting out an area where teams could do this. Unlike Almeida and Roglič, Thomas decided to change his helmet here, costing valuable seconds but perhaps helping him all the way up the climb. The trio of riders were separated by just 4 seconds at the first splits. Monte Lasari was about to decide the Giro d'Italia. Almeida equalled the best time through the next checkpoint, but Primož was a man on a mission. He charged through the Slovenian fans who roared him up the mountain, and he obliterated the best time by 32 seconds. Geraint Thomas was also setting a fine time though, but he'd lost 16 seconds by the same marker, giving him just 10 seconds left to play with. And as we waited for the riders to reach the penultimate checkpoints, this happens.
Jersey open, windows wide open, and oh, no. It had to happen again, didn't it? And the nightmare of the mountain time trial, Primož Roglic's gains have just gone up in smoke.
Yes, and we did see a moment ago he put his left hand out, and I was wondering what was it all about, and it must have been there was a mechanical problem there, and yeah.
Not again.
Again.
Not again. I talked about exercising the demons, and it's that big, big pothole. He's ridden straight over it.
Absolute disaster for Roglič. With the time trial in the balance, surely his hopes of a first Giro title were over. How about this for a side story though? The spectator on the road who helps Roglič was his former ski jumping teammate, Mitja Mesner. But the demons of a mountain time trial at a Grand Tour seem to strike Roglič again, 2.5 years after he lost the Tour de France in similar circumstances. Anyway, Damiano Caruso secured 4th place overall, while Joao Almeida ensured a podium position, both setting the best time in the process. And then there were two. Despite Roglic's mechanical issues, he weaved through the final technical meters and smashed Almeida's best time by 42 seconds. The wait was on. Thomas needed to finish with a time of 44 minutes and 48 seconds to hold onto pink. Time ticked by, and Thomas grounded his way up the mountain. And as the clock reached that magic number, Geraint still had to round the final corners. The Welshman finished second on the stage, 40 seconds behind Roglič, but it wasn't enough to retain pink. Primož Roglič had won the Giro d'Italia by a gap of just 14 seconds. And breathe. Let's talk about Primož Roglič. We all know how he lost the 2020 Tour de France. Tadej Pogačar glided up the Planche de Belfi that day in a stage 20 mountain time trial while Roglič surrendered the race lead. So it really does feel like a full circle moment for Primož to inflict almost exactly what Tadej Pogačar did to him that day in September 2020. I really am, honestly, so happy for him. Jumbo-Visma had issues entering the race too, with riders dropping out, but they were only one of 2 teams to finish with all 8 riders, all of them playing their part in the victory. But how about Geraint Thomas? The man has endured countless bad fortune and ill-timed crashes throughout his career, particularly at the Giro d'Italia. I mean, who can forget that unbelievable incident just a few weeks after Roglic's trouble on the Planche de Belfi, where Thomas ran over a bidon in the neutral zone, effectively ending his Giro d'Italia before it really began. So there's a flip side to every story, but for sure, Geraint can be so proud of a remarkable race where he came oh so close to becoming the oldest men's Giro d'Italia winner of all time. But one stage was left, and after a long commute to Rome, the sprinters were ready for one last dash to the line. Derek G, of course, couldn't resist one final attack, and the GC riders made sure they got to the final 3 kilometers in one piece. Mark Cavendish only had Luis Leon Sanchez left to help him out when Geraint Thomas glanced to the Astana duo and decided to help an old pal out.
I was just there and I saw they only had Luis Leon with him and I thought, help a brother out.
Cav then fouled the wheel of Jonathan Milan, and let's see how the finish played out.
500 metres now, and it's Pasqualon who takes it up here. On his wheel, you can see Stuart, the British rider for Groupama FDJ, the giant figure there of Milan, with Cavendish on his wheel and waiting. Is it going to be one final golden goodbye? It's an early sprint launched again by Gaviria. Left-hand side, he has Cavendish on his wheel. Here comes Cavendish through the centre. There is Cavendish through the centre. Milan's out the game. It's going to be a fairy tale. There's a crash behind, but it's Mark Cavendish. Mark Cavendish. Enjoy it. Savour it. Remember it, the world's best, the greatest of all time, sprints to victory again. In Rome, Mark Cavendish is eternal.
Could the Giro have ended in a more beautiful way? Mark Cavendish bumping his Giro stage wins tally to 17 in Rome, the Eternal City. The man who announced he'd retire only a week ago, claiming a win that surely only emphasises his status as the eternal best sprinter. So, I'd like to know, what would you give the Giro d'Italia out of 10 in terms of a spectacle? To be honest, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, the GC battle was a slow burner and we lost star names such as Remco Evenepoel and Theo Gegenhardt, which feels like an absolute lifetime ago, by the way. But we saw breakout stars in Derek G and Filippo Zana, some ferocious breakaway stages fought from kilometre 0, Bruno Armourai's valiant defence of pink, many first-time stage winners, and an ending that will be remembered for a very, very long time. And although he failed to win a stage, Thibaut Pinot had one hell of a Giro d'Italia. The Maglia Azzurra and a top 5 place in the GC is a fantastic achievement. That's the third top 5 place at a Grand Tour in Pinot's career, a career which is, of course, set to end this season. And I must admit, I'll be gutted to see Pinot leave the peloton. He's a rider who rides with passion and emotion, which doesn't always work in his favour, but his attacking style and panache is a joy to watch. Chapeau, Thibaut. Well, the Giro d'Italia may be finished, but don't fear, we do have some more racing coming up on GCN Plus this week. The Mercantour takes place on Tuesday. That's a one-day race in the Alpine Mountains. We should see Chris Froome and Richard Carapaz in action there. I'm also keen to see how 19-year-old Lenny Martinez gets on. I think he has a great chance of a good result. That's available worldwide. Now, the Criterium de Dauphiné begins this weekend too, with the first stage on Sunday. Jonas Vingegaard will be on the start line there, I believe. We also have the Brussels Classic on Sunday. No confirmed start list there, but Arnaud Démare and Tim Merlier are among the riders on the provisional list. Territory restrictions do apply to those races. Also, look out for World of Cycling out on Wednesday, where Conor Dunn will be in the studio with Pippa York and Danny Christmas for your midweek post-Giro debrief. Now, to the other races this week, and first up, the RideLondon Classique. 3 stages all in all, and 3 stages which were all won by Lorena Wiebes at last year's race. She wasn't on the start line though, so the likes of Chloe Dygert and Charlotte Kool had their eyes firmly fixed on top spots. Into the final kilometre of stage 1 in Colchester, and Pfeiffer Georgie placed Kool perfectly with some fine lead-out work. Kool did the rest from there and won by some distance ahead of Clara Caponi in second, with Lizzie Deignan in third place. The chasing peloton came across the line 30 seconds down. On to stage 2, and a reduced group formed in the final 30 kilometres, before Canyon SRAM's Maaike van der Down went on the attack with 11 kilometres left. She opened up a lead of almost 40 seconds, but that gap was down to about 10 seconds under the Flamme Rouge, where a bad crash behind brought down race leader Charlotte Kool. Van der Down was finally reeled in and the race for the line was on. Lizzie Deignan chased Chloe Dygert as they swept through the final corner, but the American held her off to win her first race of the season. Crucially though, Kool retained the race lead after crashing within the final 3 kilometres. The final stage took place over 91 kilometres in central London, and despite Sarah Roy's late attack, would have a mass sprint this time. Kool was glued to Georgie's wheel before kicking with a few hundred metres left. In Canyon SRAM duo, Chloe Dygert and Maaike van der Down were closing in on Kool's left, but the Dutch woman held them off to secure her second victory of the race, also winning overall. Instead of heading to the United Kingdom, Lorena Wiebes decided to attend the Lotto Thüringen Ladies Tour. SD Worx only fielded 5 of a possible 6 riders, but incredibly, that didn't stop them winning the opening team time trial. And well, that really was the story of the race. SD Worx put on an absolute masterclass. Misha Brederwold won stage 2 solo, with 2 SD Worx riders sprinting to 2nd and 3rd behind. Barbara Garishi then won stage 3, with Lorena Wiebes in 2nd place, before Lonika Unekun won the next day, with Wiebes winning on stage 5, and finally, Lotte Kopecky won the final stage by a margin of 32 seconds, giving her overall victory too. Quite simply, an absurd race from SD Worx. They won all 6 stages, with all of their riders winning a stage. I mean, when's the last time that happened? Complete dominance, and SD Worx really are having one hell of a season. On to the Tour of Norway then, and the race began with a prologue climbing Mount Fløyen. This is the same climb where Tom Dumoulin won the World Championships time trial in 2017, and I actually went to the top of Mount Fløyen earlier this year, and if you weren't sure already, it is steep. Despite a very young lineup, the Ineos Grenadiers dominated the first stage. Ben Tulip was the fastest, a single second ahead of Magnus Sheffield, with Attila Volta third, albeit a substantial 20 seconds back. Mike Teunissen then won stage 1. That's his first win since stage 1 of the Tour de France back in 2019, where he claimed yellow that day as well. Next, stage 2, and after impressing at the Tour of Romandy and the Tour of Hungary, Thibaut Nice claimed his first pro victory for Trek Segafredo. Still just 20 years old, I'm certainly keen to see how he progresses moving forward. Tulit gained 4 bonus seconds, increasing his lead to 5 over teammate Sheffield. And with one stage to go, which hasn't taken place at the time of filming this, we'll wrap that one up on next week's show. On to Boucle de la Mayenne, and the race started with a 4-kilometre prologue. Ivo Oliveira won his first pro race outside of the Portuguese National Championships. He denied the home fans a 1-2 as well, with Axel Zongler in second and Benoit Cosnefroid in third. Groupama FDJ boss Marc Madiot was on bidon duty on stage 1. However, the French team didn't have a rider in the breakaway. And that would prove to be crucial because Oya Lazcano attacked from that breakaway group with 11 kilometres left, quickly dispatching of his breakaway companions, and was never seen again. You may remember the Spaniard from Dwars door Vlaanderen, where he delivered a sensational breakaway performance. Lazcano was 40th after the prologue here, but the victory slingshotted him to a 42-second lead at the head of the race. Madiot would have a better day on stage 2 though. Miles Scottson led out Arnaud Demar, and the Frenchman hugged the barriers and resisted the fast-finishing Milan Menton for Lotto Soudal, while Avi Decline finished third for Tudor Pro Cycling. The final stage also concluded with a sprint, and Miles Scottson was on lead-out duty again, and dropped off Demar slightly closer to the finish line on this occasion. However, Demar was denied this time around by Decline, who is enjoying a fine season after he won Milan-Torino in March. That result confirmed overall victory for Oya Lazcano, the first stage race win in his career. Now, it's been a long one, so some quickfire news to finish up today. Magnus Cort has been linked with a move to Uno X next season, Arkea Samsic have been linked with Benoit Cosnefroid, and Tadej Pogacar is back on the bike and training outdoors after his wrist injury at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Very good news indeed. Okay, that's all we have time for this week. Enjoy your racing, and we'll see you at the same time on next week's show. Goodbye for now.